Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line of the final score. Bryan Hayes, Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Frankie Corrado. What an hour we're about to have. John Gibbons, who was in the dugout last night in Milwaukee when Pete Alonso went deep to win the ball game for the Mets. Mets are off to the NLDS, and Gibby's joined us a lot over the years, so we'll catch up with him. We're looking forward to that. And Mike Johnson coming up. I guess the NHL season is officially underway over in beautiful Prague, where Jersey beat Buffalo 4-1 earlier today, and they'll play again tomorrow, and then they'll fly home.
Would have been a lot easier. I think about going all the way over there and getting dummied in the first game, because any OHL, NHL, it's like the first game always has a weird vibe. Nobody quite feels right. Everyone's a little bit off. You're not into the groove where I'm like, I'm going to get ready for the game and I'm ready to go and I'm dialed in. But even really the best players, everyone's just a little bit off. To fly over there and get your ass handed to you 4-1, it's just like, I wish I had have gone to Jersey.
Yes.
Get me to Jersey.
Exactly. Let me play anywhere else on earth but over here in Prague. And it's only one game. They have 81 more.
I know.
But I'm out on Buffalo. I feel like I'm out.
Hold on,
Dude,
Hayes. Have
I'm
you not
out.
seen? Have
You
you not
be quiet.
Seen,
You take it back, because you always dump on small markets in different places around North America.
Man, but they have been
you
in
are
the
not
playoffs.
saying that. You are not saying that.
It's
I'm out on Buffalo in
just
game one.
one game, but I'm out. I'm out.
You can't be out yet, Hayes,
Can't be out?
because did you see the deserve to win-o-meter?
Did they win that running away?
They smashed the Devils on the deserve to win-o-meter. If they play that game again, Buffalo wins 6-1. Therefore, you can't be out on Buffalo yet because they won the deserve to win-o-meter.
Then I rescind that comment.
Who
and
runs
they're
that?
gonna
Who
win
runs the
Stanley
deserve
Cup.
to win-o-meter? Like, what is that?
It's a website.
Stats?
Yeah, it's it's an analytics website.
I know that. Who runs it?
I think it's Money Puck. Money Puck does it.
It's really great stuff. It just gives people hope. It's just like they can fall back, because nobody likes saying, you know what, we're not that good. They're like, hey, if you look, we deserve to win.
It's great,
right?
Man. I feel like you could doctor that. Like, if you're just if you're the GM of an awful team, just pay them off and say, please just tell everyone
Christy Pitt's $100,000 in the trunk to the win-o-meter guy and say, every game we want to say that we deserve to win the cup that game.
We got to ask Johnny. We got to ask Johnny what he thinks of the deserve to win-o-meter when he comes on.
I think Johnny would fully support the deserve to win-o-meter.
I think he probably will, but I think he'll temper it. I think he'll say something along the lines of, there's value to it. It probably speaks to, different elements of the game that aren't as obvious with just staring at the scoreboard or the game sheet. But you still play to win the game. But that'd be amazing if you could grease the deserve to meter guy and you deserve to go 82-0. Like, see how long you can do it before someone picks up that it's been doctored. Like, how far into the season would you have to do it before someone said, wait a minute, I watched that game. They were brutal. Like, there's just no way. They were awful. They lost 6-0, but they deserved to win?
Imagine the coach.
Play to win the game.
Imagine you're sitting there, you're in Prague, and you're like, we just got dummied, and you're expecting the coach to come in and kind of give you guys the gears. Meanwhile, he walks in, he's like, it wasn't that bad, boys. We actually deserve to win that game.
It's fantastic. They can take it to all aspects of life. Like, just an ugly person that can't get any dates. It's like, you deserve more dates.
Yeah.
You're not that ugly.
You deserve to be a scratch golfer. So
That's it. One. By the way, I hope the best thing to do, I'm letting you know right now, when you play the Nash, the best course in Canada, you go play your own course. It feels normal. I shot 3 under today. It was a breeze. It was comfortable. It was nice. And it wasn't torture. And there was no Dorf on golf.
Did you get dummied the other day at the National?
Oh, it was disgusting,
dude.
man.
It was like, honestly, there were some holes where it was like 12-year-olds putting around, chipping around. Like, it was.
Yeah.
Hayes putted one on top of a green and then ended up at the front of the green, off the green. His head almost popped off.
Dude, I thought I hit a good putt. Like, I really did. I was like, that's actually pretty good pace. I think I got a good read on this.
This thing went in the rough. His head almost flew off his body.
Yeah.
Dude, that's so standard there. And it's not just one hole that could happen on. There's 15 holes that could happen on at that course. The first hole, if you're on the back of that green and you're putting to a front pin, you might as well just bring your wedge with you.
Death. Yeah, the amount of times where you look at it and you know this is probably going off the green. It's either going to hit the pin and go in or it's off the green. It's very demoralizing. But, I felt like the deserve-o-meter, if they followed me around yesterday, would have said I probably should have shot it like a 68.
Dude,
there it is.
Holy Nikes!
Buffalo wins that 3 times out of every 4
We're going to have a
games.
heyday with this thing, man.
We're
going to go to town on this all year long.
Well, Randy just sent a tweet in saying, I watched the whole game, and there's no way in hell Buffalo won the deserve-to-win-a-meter. Not even in the same stratosphere for the first 2 periods, and maybe they won the third. No, they won.
And with a name like Randy, that's a respected veteran hockey name.
Yes.
And I know he's telling the truth.
He really was dialed in.
Dude, that guy was the best player in Junior B. The only reason he didn't make it because he blew out his shoulder twice.
And drank too much.
Or the coach didn't like him or something.
Good one, Randy. Good one.
Here's Mike Johnson, our TSN Hockey analyst, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Are you or are you not a proponent of the deserve-to-win-a-meter? Do you buy into that?
I do enjoy a good deserve-to-win-a-meter.
I knew you would.
You son of a bitch.
I knew you would.
You son of a bitch. I knew you son of a bitch you would say you liked it. I can't take it.
It is easy to understand. It doesn't involve any numbers. Like, hey, sometimes the nature of sports, sometimes we hear it all the time, cliche, we deserve better. Well, the deserve-to-win-o-meter is going to let you know if you deserve better. So, yeah, I can get behind it a little bit.
Johnny, have you ever tapped a coach on the shoulder or an executive after the game when you're leaving and just say, hey, don't worry, you deserve to win? Like, come on, man.
Oh, yes. So coaches say that to me all the time, actually. They're like, yeah, we played well enough. We deserve to win that game. We play that game 10 times. We win 8 of them. Like that's how it goes. Especially with goaltending or starting pitching in baseball. Like you can do a lot of different stuff where you play well enough, or tough calls or whatever it might be, bad finishing, things that if you do it consistently. And I think that's the sentiment behind deserve-to-win-o-meter. If you want to take a macro view of it. If you do the things that get you above 50% of the deserve-to-win-o-meter, then you will win more often than not if you have talented players.
Yeah.
And that's all you take out of it.
Well, and that's reason. Like the goaltending scenario is the most obvious one, and the most reasonable one. Some guy makes 50 stops. You're going to want, and you lose 2-1. You're going to say we deserve to win. That I get. But it's, like this afternoon, the deserve-to-win-a-meter, I don't know. I mean, Buffalo.
Did it favor Buffalo?
Yeah, it said Buffalo 75% of the time they win that game. They lost 4-1. No, it did.
I watched the first 2 periods. I mean, they had I think some of that is, I don't know the algorithm that puts it together, but that one save by Markstrom, which it might be the save of the year in game 1.
Yes.
Like, that would count for, if it's expected goals model, that's like almost 100% expected goal. Like, that goes in every single time. And if it's a relatively close game, there are probably some score effects in the third period where Buffalo played better in the third after not really doing too much in the first or second. Listen, you can't put blind faith in it, It's not the be-all, end-all, but I do like that it's simple. It's easy to understand.
All right. I got you.
But I would not have guessed. If I were to guess, I would have said 60-40, 65-35 in favor of Jersey, having watched that game.
There you go. I mean, and the shots were lopsided in the third, not surprisingly. Well, if you're the Leafs, what would you say their deserve to win a cup meter would be looking back in the last 8 years? How many cups do you think they deserved to win, looking back on their roster and the way that they generally perform, their talent, their depth, etc.? How many would you give them?
Cups, 0.
Okay.
I would give them they probably deserve to win rounds in play. Like, what was it, the Columbus bubble playoff where whoever it was, Korpisalo had 85 saves. Like, they probably deserve to win that one. They probably should have won that series. So I think you could mix in some series in that conversation, but to win a cup, No, not even close. I mean, just too much further to go before they could get considered for a cup. But yeah, I don't think they should feel shortchanged given the way they've played in big moments in the first round, let alone having to do that 3 more times to try to win it all.
Mike Johnson, your role this time around on OverDrive is the head coach, and Nick Robertson walks in your office, and you're about to tell him what line he's been playing on. I want you to explain to Nick what line he's playing on and why.
Nick, have a seat for me, please. Really like what you've done in camp so far. Put all that noise in the summer behind you. Been great, scoring goals. But it's not just the goals that has me intrigued with you, Nick. It's your willingness to play away from the puck. I got you killing penalties. You're blocking shots. You're getting the pucks out. You're getting pucks in. And when there's a puck to be scored, you're the guy scoring. So you know who you're playing with? You're playing with John Tavares. Ooh. He's a Hall of Famer. He's the guy who's going to be tasked with playing defensive responsibility because I trust you. And you know who else you're going to play with? Max Pacioretty. You guys got a little something. I like the 2 apples Max had in Detroit in that last game you guys played together. 2 veterans and a young whippersnapper. You're the guy who's going to bring the speed and the finish, and you're going to have great matchups. You're going to play 17 minutes, and you're going to get on the second power play unit because you know what? You're scoring 25 this year, and next summer you're getting $4 million a year. Maybe not from us, but I don't care because you're getting 25 minimum this year. I love what you're doing so far. You're on a scoring line all game long.
Wow. 25 has been the number that's been thrown around today.
You guys
Johnny.
hand out 25 cookies like the Winometer. Holy Christmas.
Well, he had He had 14 last year, and he didn't have any power play goals.
Quick math, 14 and 56. That's a 20-goal pace if you play him every game. He played 11 minutes. How many forwards averaged fewer minutes per game last year than Nick Robertson?
0.
1. Ryan Reeves. 1. So, goals per 60, your favorite, he was second behind Austin Matthews. He scored more frequently per minute played at 5-on-5 than Willie, than Tavares, than Mitch, than anyone else other than Austin Matthews. So I don't think 25 is a stretch because he can shoot it. If you play him, he's going to score. He might hurt you in other ways, but he's going to score.
So if you have Nick Robertson playing with John Tavares and Max Pacioretty, does that mean you have William Nylander playing center in the regular season?
Well, I think they're going to start there, or they might even flip-flop. Like they might have Max and Willie playing like the sort of centerless line, like just all wingers, and just someone's got to take faceoffs and just figure it out as they go. I think that might be a possibility. But
Who
yeah,
plays with him? Who do you think plays with him? Yarncroke? Is it McMahon?
I think Yarncroke if healthy. I think cause someone's got to go back and go in his own end, and Yarncroke can do that. Like he's diligent, he's strong, he's responsible, he's quick enough and good enough with the puck to kind of facilitate with those guys. And I think Yarncroke, if healthy, is the guy, and that makes Bobby McMahon a fourth liner. And I don't mind Bobby McMahon on the fourth line. Sorry, Bobby, I know you want to play higher, but I don't mind him. He's fast and he's physical and he's a straight line guy. You put him with Kemp and whoever else, Lawrence, I suppose, or Reeves, if it matters, and that's your 12 forwards. I think if everyone's healthy, that's how it shakes out. And that's because Nick Robertson deserves to play where he plays, further up in the lineup. He was a real wild card guy, and he played well enough to earn a spot on a scoring line. I mean, I think he's played. That was for the one roster spot and the fourth line, but the one offensive spot up for grabs, and he earned it.
Yeah, he did. And Tree Living joined us last hour, and he said that. He's like, he's done enough where we got to find a spot for him. And, you mentioned you got David Camp still. You've got Pontus Holmberg, Duo when he's healthy.
Hazy, I spoke to Tree Living as well, and he went out of his way, unprompted, to pump the tires of Pontus Holmberg, which is enough to make things that make you, like the old TNT Music Factory song. Like, if he's going to play, where's he going to go?
I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. If they're going to sign Steven Lorentz, and he's on a PTO, if he's going to be here, Camp has 3 years left at 2.5 or whatever. He's not going anywhere, I don't think.
He's not going anywhere, but maybe in a perfect – I'm not trying to create drama or anything, but in a perfect world, if you could replace a lateral move and save $1.5 million, you could take David Camp's 2.5 and trade it for Holmberg's 1 and get the same sort of game. And then you have to ask yourself, like, why are we signing Stephen Lawrence? I wanted to get a deal, but
Right.
we're under contract. Can't he play on the left wing? Although, again, Brad Treliving went out of his way to suggest that he thinks he's a centerman. He can play on the wings, no problem, but he thinks he's a centerman. So now it's Holmberg an option as a second-line guy with Domi and Nylander? Like, could they possibly be thinking about that? I don't think so, but it was peculiar when unprompted, not related to any other question I'd asked him, he said, but one guy we're really happy with is Pontus Holmberg. You're like, well, geez, he kind of gets lost in the shuffle. Maybe he shouldn't be.
Yeah, he's crafty. I mean, again, I think he's a more than likely a bottom six depth option, but they've also cultivated him. He's been with the Marlies, and he's cheaper. Like, these are all things that they have to figure out. And I got a feeling that Berube and company, they got a pretty good idea. But you're also playing the waivers game. You're trying to sneak guys in late and hope that they get through, right? You're waiting for other teams to make their decisions and be up against the cap so they can't pluck guys, because that's a big part of it too. You want to get the best team possible through the waiver wire so you can get them down to the minors and you can have access to them as the season goes on. It's a big part of it.
You want to get the one free recall, right? So you get them down there and then you get them back up and then you might lose them the next time, but you want the option of the first free recall, and and then Nick Robertson's he's not going down. He'll never clear waivers. There's no chance in the world. But whether it's Connor Timmins, if Hakanpää gets healthy, like Connor Timmins, because Connor Timmins played himself ahead of Timothy Liljegren.
Well, I was just going to say that, Johnny. Timothy Liljegren, to me, does not look like a defenseman who's ready to take another step this year. He looks like he has completely plateaued, and this might just be as good as it gets. He is supposed to be taking the steps to be a top four guy. He might be closer to being out of the lineup at this point.
The only thing wrong you said in that sentence was this year. It's been every year. Like, what am I missing here?
Well, because he's a year older, you would think like that's part of the maturation process for him. But I've been very underwhelmed by him this preseason.
Yeah, and Frankie, I think he has acknowledged he's underwhelmed himself. Like, he's talked about being disappointed that it hasn't gone well, he hasn't played well, and he just signed a 2-year deal for $3 per year.
That's what makes no sense. Is that they could have just there was some thought that maybe they wouldn't qualify him, maybe they just let him go. And then all of a sudden they sign him, and now you're committed to the guy. And if he's played himself, who's picking him up around the league at that ticket if he can't play himself into this top six? If he's a seventh defenseman up here, what's the market for him out there? I don't know what it is, but that might have been a mistake. They could have just let him walk. I understand why they in the end decided, okay, we'll try to keep him and hope he keeps playing and maybe his value gets going. It can't hurt to have depth. But he's not cheap. He's not getting paid $850,000 anymore. And if he's not even going to play for you, that's an expensive seventh defenseman. Okay. Did we lose Johnny, or is this just a really suspenseful, he really has a Liljegren take that he wants to boil? All right, we got to get
really leaning on it and waiting to bring the heat.
He's chewing on this Liljegren take. But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's again, a guy, first-round pick. He's been through the system, was a Marley for a long time. And I think he can give you some value during the regular season. I just don't think he's a playoff performer. I don't think he's a guy that
played himself out of every lineup in the playoffs.
Right, exactly.
He was kind of like the defenseman version of Nick Robertson, where he's not that big. You can see that there's some skill there. But big boy games, it's push off the puck. I'm not around. I don't want to get hit. I don't want to hit. And I don't make those skill plays in those games. So ultimately you say, what good am I?
Dude,
what's the value?
Here's one of the issues, I think, for a defenseman like that. He's not the fastest guy on that blue line. He's not the biggest guy on that blue line. He's not the best defender. He's not the best offensive guy. So what is it that makes you a staple on that blue line if you're not the best at any of those things? And there's probably a few other things that I just can't think of, but it's there's no one thing that the coach looks at you and says, well, I have to have him in the lineup for that.
That's been the case, I think, throughout his career, really. We have Johnny back. It sounds as if Jake McCabe and the Leafs maybe could be talking about an extension. How comfortable would you be with them locking McCabe up long term?
I mean, you love the energy, the spirit. He's played well. The only thing you don't like is his age. I mean, think about the ages of some of these guys, whether it's Tanev, Ekman-Larsson, Riley, McCabe. Those 4 defensemen now will be what, all 36 or older as their contracts expire? That's not good. Now, maybe they don't care about that in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Maybe they shouldn't because they're trying to do it now. You like the way he's played. He brings bite and physicality and that idea of sort of sacrificing himself. He does a lot of good things. I'm always leery of signing any player in their 30s to term because more often than not, the end of that term is not very pleasant, but that's what he's going to get on the market. If they want him, they got to give him 5 years, right? Like that's what it's going to cost. So they just have to roll that dice, and for the next 2 or 3 years, they better hope they have great success then, because after that, it's going to get very tricky.
Yeah, that does seem to be the thought process here. Like with Tanev, it's just accepted that it could be a disaster by the end, you know.
Or isn't it just accepted he won't be there at the end?
Or maybe he pulls a Shea Weber and it's, see you later, I'm not going to be around or I can't play. And come for your physical, go on long-term IR and leave. But and that could be the case. But again, I don't know who makes that decision. Do the Leafs get to go to Tanev and say that's enough? Or does he make that call? That's tricky.
He has to make it, but
exactly.
And I'm not suggesting a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You're like, what's the chance of this guy, the way he plays, his back, his knees, his whatever will be good in 5 years?
I think it's going to be difficult to see that, and yet he's 34 right now. I mean, what are you hoping for?
Yeah.
Probably 2, maybe 3 years, and maybe the same thing out of McCabe, same thing out of Riley. Like it's maybe they're just buying their time. Like we got to get through a few years here. The cap's going to go up. You got to filter in some young talent, and even Austin. Like Matthews is here long term. Willie's here long term. They're not young guys. Like they're 27, 28. Like they're a few years away from being over the hill, and into their back end of their prime or kind of easing out of their prime. It happens quick, man.
They're probably there already. Like, it's hard to say Austin had 69 goals last year, Willie career year, but some of that's the league. But science tells us forwards generally peak production-wise at like 24, 25, 26. Yeah. So if you think the next 5 years are going to be as good as the last 5 years for any of those guys,
unlikely.
More unlikely than likely. So that's what they're dealing with.
Maybe to be like the optimist point of view on that, like production-wise, they may have peaked, but like their smarts for the game and maybe learning how to win, that might be where, towards this back half, that might kick in at this point because it's not about the 69 goals anymore. It's not about the 100 points. Like, these guys have all done that. It's about finding a way to win in the playoffs, and maybe that's what they achieve with this second half of their career.
But Frankie, where's the tolerance for John Tavares getting better in the second half of his career? You hear a lot of people, gnashing their teeth about how good he might be. Like, wouldn't he fall into that category? Production's not quite there, but maybe.
Well, he's 34 now? Like, these guys still have, 6 years before they get there.
He's where those guys are going to get to.
Right.
Like, people aren't necessarily celebrating him, even though in some of their biggest moments in the playoffs, he's been part of them, including the game-winning goal in Tampa and all the rest. But, I don't know. They're going into a new year. They're going to have a good team. God, their goaltending looked good. Stolar's looked incredible so far. They have, 3 years, feels like, to be really good. And then whatever the window, whatever this team looks like, it'll be gone, and they'll have to kind of redo it all over again.
Yeah, that's kind of depressing when you put it that way. They better get this done.
Well, I don't know. Like, how many teams, though, Hayes? How many teams would not swap places with Toronto right now, like rosters?
Probably 20.
24?
Maybe.
25?
Yep.
20. Three-quarters of the league would rather be Toronto than themselves.
Sure.
So it's not depressing. It's actually, optimistic that they have. Seems weird to say they have a chance, but they have a chance.
Yeah.
Because their team is this good.
Well, and that's, I've said this before when being asked to make a prediction on what's going to happen in the playoffs, where if I didn't have access to their history, if I had never seen them play before and had no idea that they hadn't won, blah, 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 and I just looked at this team in a vacuum compared to the other teams going into the 24-25 season, I'd say I think that team can go on a long run. You know, that's how I would feel. What stops me is I have seen their history. I have lived it. I've watched it, and I know what happens. And, you know, they obviously have to be the ones that change that reality. But that's, I guess, what I'm getting at is 8 years ago it was so promising, so optimistic.
Yeah.
It was a foregone conclusion these guys were going to win. And now you're like, you got probably 3 years now. You know, you had 11, now you have 3. And that's
all it takes
they've
is
done
one
that to themselves. Yeah,
Listen,
all it takes
is one. You got to do it one time, and then you're finally considered a winner.
Yep.
So they still have a window to do that.
Absolutely, they do. Absolutely. All right, Johnny, we'll leave it there. Have a good weekend.
All right, fellas. Deserve to have a good win-o-meter? 100%.
Yes. Deserve to have a great weekend, O-meter. I love it. All right, Johnny. Mike Johnson, our TSN Hockey analyst, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Check out Maple Toyota's huge truck and SUV lineup, including Tundra, 4Runner, Highlander, and Grand Highlander in stock and ready to deliver. Visit mapletoyota.com. John Gibbons later in the hour. Something tells me Gibby doesn't care much for the win-o-meter. Expect a win-o-meter, I don't think is a part of his daily routine.
Well, he might sniff around on the win-o-meter. You never know. Baseball, analytics.
They do that a lot in baseball. But I'll bet you he just looked at the scoreboard last night and said, that's a win. And we're off to Philly. The New York Mets on their way to the Phillies, or to take on the Phillies in the NLDS. All right, Gibby coming up. We've got Luke coming up on Kirk Cousins and the Falcons winning a great ball game last night. Look ahead to the rest of Week 5. Dear Hazy be in about an hour. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. Mailed In Friday is brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. From tip-offs to tie bites and puck drops to pizza, BP's elite lineup of apps, wings, and ice-cold beers. Always dialed in for game time. Hustle into your local BP tonight. John Gibbons coming up. Gibby, of course, of the New York Mets. And what a win that was for the Mets last night. Pete Alonso going deep, 3-run shot in the ninth. And the Mets break the hearts of the Brewers. And, you know, the crowd shots, we talk about that a lot on this show. And I take runs at certain cities and certain markets and whether or not they're great sports towns. I felt for Brewer fans last night because they're up 2-0. You think, here we go, we're getting through, it's going to happen. And Pete Alonso just breaks their heart last night. Conversely, the tying kick by the Falcons, did you see the crowd behind the uprights? Like, is it just me, or did it look like there were about 15 people in the building and everyone else had left?
At that time of the game?
Yeah, it was. And I get it. It's a Thursday night, you know, September, things are changing, kids are in school. But this, like, what a ball game that was last night. And look at how many people had left. I mean, there are still a fair amount of people, but a lot of empty seats. And I take issue with that, because if you go to that game and it's that close, and it was never a blowout. It wasn't as if it was 30-7 at the half and he said, screw it, we're out of here, and they made some miraculous comeback. It was back and forth the whole night.
Hayes, I think some people's fan experience is like a business transaction where it's like, hey, you're in Atlanta, let's go to the Falcons game. And it's like they go and have 6 beers and they're like, yeah, let's get out of here and go. You know, that
Go
might be
somewhere
people's
else,
fit.
possibly. Yeah, Thursday
it might be
night.
just a bit like you see it with the Leafs, and it's like it's not like the diehard. It's a business transaction, man. It's like,
Yeah,
hey, you're in
be.
town. I'm going to take you to the Falcons game, and who knows how many. But that early in the season to see that many people behind there. We talked about the Dolphins. Sometimes you pan their crowd. It's like, what the hell's going on down there?
Mm-hmm.
That's South Florida's always like that, though, with all their teams. Like the Panthers did great.
We
on
hate
the Stanley
that
Cup.
market down there, don't
Yes, we do.
We
I think the
hate
whole
that
state.
market.
I think we painted the
Really?
whole state. Yeah, we don't.
I don't recall
Hazy
you not liking
hates
that
Florida.
state.
Hazy has said on record, Florida is not a sports place.
It's awful sports. Awful for pro sports. I think.
Oh, they've
probably
done a lot
college
of
and
winning.
high school.
They've done a lot of
They
winning.
have done a lot of
that's
winning.
for sure.
And I love the state. I love visiting Florida. Love it.
And nobody cares about Tampa up here.
Tampa, I mean, that's an isolated city. I don't even know why I said that at that point. I don't remember the context of that. But Atlanta, obviously not in the state, but it was a great ball game. And in primetime, Kirk Cousins, I'm curious how Luke – because Luke's a fan, I think, of Kirk. And I think Luke said he thought the Falcons would win last night. But I thought both quarterbacks looked really good. And that's what the NFL needs. It can't just be Mahomes and Allen and Lamar. Like that next level, fighting for who's going to move up. Like Kirk Cousins, can he play like a top 10 quarterback this year? Can Baker Mayfield play like a top 10 quarterback? That's mandatory, because it just feels like in the NFL we focus on either the elite, like the 3 or 4 guys at the top, or how bad the other guys are. You talk about Bryce Young and Will Levis and all these other guys who are just horrible at the position. That middle ground, if they start pushing up the list, that's going to do wonders in terms of the entertainment value of the NFL.
Well, I think, Hayes, if you go back to the start of the NFL season, or even when training camp before it was going to start, ESPN always comes out with their top 10 quarterbacks, and then there's the best of the rest. All those guys that are the best of the rest, they can basically be in that list from 5 till 10. I think a lot of those guys are interchangeable.
Yes.
It's Mahomes and Allen at the top. That's your top tier. I don't know if you want to put Lamar up there, but I'm sure you could make a compelling argument for it. Mm-hmm. But after that, from 4 to 14, let's call it, I think there's a lot of interchangeable quarterbacks in there.
Yes, I think you're right. And I think it changes year over year. Jared Goff, you can throw in there. There's a number of different guys.
Matthew Stafford has been there. Dak's
in there. Exactly. Is Jordan Love playing himself in there if he stays healthy? Where's Aaron Rodgers still? There is, I think, a separation. Mahomes is on his own. Then I think it's Allen and Lamar fighting for 2, 3. And then, you can go around the league and try to figure out who else is on that list.
Healthy Tua's in there.
Healthy Tua, Burrow's closer to the top. I think Herbert, is he closer to the top? But, yeah, last night, those 2 quarterbacks, to their credit, Kirk Cousins and Baker Mayfield, they look like they've got their offenses dialed in, and they both played really well. And for a Thursday night game, the history of this night in the NFL has generally been underwhelming, and just ugly games. And even Al Michaels, last week we played the clip, Dallas, New York, that's a ratings bonanza. Cowboys, Giants, isolated, primetime. And he was complaining about the amount of flags that were being thrown and how ugly it was. And the weather was bad. And the score was 20-15, and it was all field goals. Last night was a shootout. And that was a great ball game and a great way to start Week 5. Luke Wilson coming up in about a half an hour. Al's brother coming up. Talking football, but also talking Leaf tickets. All right, we're going to be giving away Leaf tickets throughout the year. And Al's brother is going to be heavily involved in this. You're going to want to find out the details on that. It's going to start next week. And we're going to be handing out Leaf tickets all year. So we'll tell you about the details when Al's brother joins us. John Gibbons still to come. And Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel and Dear Hazy B on a Friday to wrap up the week. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. What a scene it was last night in Milwaukee. Pete Alonso, 2 on. Down 2 in the 9th, and off his bat, he knew it was gone. Opposite field always feels more like a statement, right? When some guy, and Pete Alonso is a monster at the plate, and he's been hitting home runs for years, basically ever since he walked in to the league, but he has never hit a bigger one in his life than last night. And this Mets team, man, it looked ugly early in the season, and then they came alive, and they've been red hot. And now they're off to the NLDS, and the Phillies are waiting for them. What a rivalry, what a matchup, what a great NLDS we have. And a man that was in the house last night in Milwaukee, and I believe he's in Philly now, preparing for Game 1 tomorrow, is bench coach for the Mets and good friend of the show. Here's John Gibbons. How you doing, John?
Good, man. How you guys doing? It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while, Gibby. What was that like last night? I mean, paint the picture for us. In the dugout, off the bat, when Alonso hit that home run, what was your reaction?
Well, going into the game, it was a good feeling. I think the guys were very relaxed, and we got a little mojo going. We always felt that. But as the game went on, and there was no runs being scored, and you knew they had such a good bullpen, you're going, what's going to happen here? So, and then of course, we made a pitcher change. They came in back-to-back home runs. Now we're down 2, and we're running out of time. But it just had this feeling. I've been, I've felt that thing before. I've seen it. And I even said to Carlos Mendoza, our manager, and went over because we've been waiting on Alonso to hit a big one in a while. He'd been a little bit of a rut. And we both thought he's going to do it right now. Of course, we're throwing up a prayer there, no doubt. but he gets one of the better closers in baseball, you know. And then sure enough, he came through. But and you know, we had it on a big run. But you know, there's something special about this team. You know, you don't always feel that with every team. You know, I felt that with our 15 team. But this group, you know, after a bad start to the season, and then we hit the skids again in May, and even the owner was talking about selling off players, and you know, we brought in. I think it all happened. We brought in Iglesias. You know, he came up, you know, and he kind of unified this group here. You know, we were kind of scrambling, and then of course he's played great, and then he brought out his song, you know, and it's like it's almost like a circus. But hey, we got a good group, man. There's no telling what we can do here.
Absolutely. And, you know, when the big boys do it, when they step up and you feel like they're due, there's something special about that in baseball. And I believe it was 8 years ago today, Edwin Encarnacion walked off the Orioles in that wild card game. So that was 8 years ago when Edwin hit that home run. I think that was the defining moment of his Blue Jay career. The year before, obviously, Bautista in the seventh inning, maybe the most famous, you know, home run we've seen here since Joe Carter certainly would be. Can you speak to that, Gibby? Like when the big boys do it, obviously you'll take anyone doing it for you, but the fact that it was Alonso stepping up to the plate in that situation, and now that he broke out of that rut, like what does that do for your team and your clubhouse knowing that guy is the one that actually pulled it off for you?
Well, you know what? I mean, the big guys are the guys who got to do it, you know, and like you brought up Eddie, you know, and then Bautista, you know, it just shows you the home runs win in this business, you know. Yeah, those guys, the reason they became star players and very productive players in the game is because they rise to the occasion where, you know, some other guys just don't do that for whatever reason, right? And you always look to those guys. And so, you know, it doesn't mean it is always going to happen. But if you're going to win, your big boys have got to, you know, you've got to step up. You know, you take contributions from everybody, but when the game's on the line, you know, the teams that usually win, you know, their guys step up. And you know, with Pete, you know, Pete's a free agent this year. I think he's been, you know, he's had a good solid year, but I think he's been pressing all year, you know, because of that. But you know what? He was beating himself up a little bit in the dugout too after his couple of bats he had earlier in the game, you know. But when it mattered most, he stepped up, and I think it's going to happen. Now he can exhale a little bit, and you know, he no telling what he might do now. I mean, he may just throw us all on his back, you know. And but that's the name of the game. You know, your star players get paid a lot of money for a reason, and that was it.
Gibby, you sound a little raspy today. How deep did you guys take it last night? Or was it like, fellas, we got to calm down and get on the bird and get out of here? Were you guys fully allowed to put the pedal to the metal last night or what?
No, well, you know, I'm getting a little old, man. I don't partake in all that. But you know what? Something's been going yeah, you know, something's been going around. Everybody's sick all of a sudden, you know. I hope it's not COVID, but, you know, yeah, everybody's got head colds and coughing and all that, and it hit me this morning. So yeah, I'm tired. I'm beat up and tired, but not from partying too hard. But you know, you get a little bit older, you know, it's not quite as easy.
You got to pace yourself. Pace yourself, Gibby.
Well, the party would be pretty big if you guys can beat the Phillies. You know, second best winning percentage in the NL this season. What would it have to look like for the Mets to beat the Phillies?
Well, you know what? I mean, we play them good, you know, all year long. And I think we're about even, or they might have one more win against us. You know, because our pitching equalizes their big bats a lot. You know, so that's the key. And they're a free swinging team, and we're even, you know, Milwaukee. That's what we kind of feared a little bit. You know, they were a different style of offense, and they get on, they can run you crazy. But you know, Philly's a classic. You know, it's like an American League team, you know, a lot of home run hitters and a great ballpark to hit home runs in. But we match up pretty good with them. Our pitchers have held them in check, you know, quite a bit this year, and so we'll see. But they got a good pitching staff. But you know, our guys, you know, when you give them that mojo on your side, things just happen, you know. And you know, we played them, you know, a couple weeks ago, took 3 out of 4 when they were sitting pretty, but you know, I mean, they were still important games. So we'll see. You know, they're clearly, if you look at their team, you know, the lineup and their pitching staff and the bullpen and all that, you know, it's clearly arguably probably the best team out there, you know. But we'll see. But that never wins you anything, does it? It helps.
Right, exactly.
It doesn't guarantee anything.
No, it's not. It's not played on paper, man. You got to go out there and get 27 outs with John Gibbons.
That's right.
And, you know, the journey you guys have been on, like you had the big win over the weekend to kind of keep everything alive. Then you go down to Atlanta, and you're playing that doubleheader, knowing that you're going to play 2 games in a day. They're both incredibly meaningful. Like whoever wins the first game, the second game is going to be very meaningful for the other team. You guys win game 1 of the doubleheader, so you clinch. Braves end up winning game 2. Braves have to go to San Diego. You have to go back to Milwaukee. What has it been like? You talked about some guys under the weather. I would guess the travel might be part of it. I mean, the last 72 hours, 96 hours has just been crazy. Now you're in Philly. Like, how tough has it been to kind of keep up with where you guys are going next?
Well, actually, I think we got a break because we started in Milwaukee, then we went to Atlanta for that makeup doubleheader, then we went back to Milwaukee. If we'd had to go like to San Diego, that might have been a little tougher. And so now, we're back here in Philly, which wasn't too bad, an hour and a half flight. So, this time of year, at least for the players, like I said, us old men, takes its toll probably on me more than them, but they're running on adrenaline anyway and fumes. Everybody's tired, and that's the beauty of the playoffs. The fans, bring you to life, and so we'll see. But every team that's in the playoffs now, that we've played them very well all year long. So I mean, when we're the bottom seed, but we got a real shot at this thing. And you never know. I mean, New York's come to life. They were. I think they didn't know what to expect this year. It was kind of a somewhat of a rebuilding, let's say, in a hopeful type season. But we'll see. Now they're catching fire now too, and we've all seen it in every sport. Sometimes teams aren't expected to do anything, and they come out on top. It's hard, but they sometimes do.
That's right. Yeah, it must be wild in New York right now with the Yankees and the Mets in the playoffs, and starting tomorrow. And you guys are in Philly, and you made an interesting decision. You're putting Senga out there tomorrow. He hasn't pitched in a long time. I saw him speaking today, I believe, through a translator that, if he's asked to pitch 10 pitches, he'll give you 10 pitches. If you ask him to give him 200 pitches, he'll give you 200 pitches. But he hasn't pitched in a few months. Take us through that call to put him out in game 1 tomorrow.
Well, it's I wasn't part of that decision making, no doubt. But he came, he missed most of the year, and then he came back to us. I guess, like two months ago, maybe. He made a start. He built himself up and was dominating. It's like I'd heard all about this guy, and then of course, he was, they pulled his calf muscle, right? And everybody thinks he's finished. Maybe he's gonna be like Stroman was at 15. Remember, he came back to save the day. But how much he'll be able to throw, who knows? But I tell you what, he's. When he's out there, he's a dominating guy, and maybe he should be that shot in the arm we need, to give us that little boost. Because our pitchers have thrown a lot of innings, especially by today's standard, and so they're feeling a little bit. And our bullpen, in today's game, the bullpens get used and abused,
Mm-hmm.
But we've been able to save them a little bit because our starters have been so good. So, but we'll see. Sometimes that little extra. A fresh arm comes in there, a guy that's really, really good, and gives you a lift too.
In Philly, representing the Mets, are you hanging around with security out there, Gibby? Like, how do you get through the streets of Philadelphia the next few days?
Hey, Philly's a rough town now. Like a lot of these big American New England city, Northeast cities, man, they're all rough nowadays. But I can remember when I was a player back in the '80s with the Mets. We'd go to Philly, and it was like chaos. It was at the old Veterans Stadium, and I was usually down in the bullpen, but you'd sit out there, you watch, you look up in the upper deck, and there's fights going on everywhere, and then the cops would go up there, and they'd be dragging these guys down the concrete floor. And they even had a jail cell, I guess, in the vet, I heard, and so they'd throw these guys in there. It's like, so there's a big rivalry, big hatred, I think, between New York and Philly, so there's always that little added extra, so we'll see.
Absolutely. Well, we're pulling for you. I think everyone up here in Toronto certainly is. What a blast that would have been last night. Good luck starting tomorrow against Philly, and hopefully you keep the train going, and we'll keep chatting with you down the road. Thank you for this, John.
All right, boys. Miss you guys, man. Appreciate you having me on.
You got it. Anytime. There's John Gibbons. Love catching up with Gibby, man. What a beauty he is.
I just don't see Gibby as condo guy in New York. I just see him on a ranch, dude. I know that's where the guy lives in Texas. He's on some kind of ranch.
Yeah, he's in like San Antonio. And he's definitely got a ranch down there. And I guess if you're working for the Mets, you probably live out in Queens or something. You're around the stadium, and it's a catch and release kind of thing. You're in for 6 months, and then you're gone.
That's it.
And
that's what pro sports is, man. Unless you get like attached and you become a part of the community, it's like looking back on it. I could have got a Holiday Inn room with a fridge and just lived there while the season was going on.
Yeah.
Because what the hell else do you need? You're just sleeping and playing hockey.
Yeah, exactly. It's a business, man. It's all business.
You can Airbnb your place out for like 2-week road trips if you play in the Western Conference. Because you'll go on the road for 14 days, play 7 games. You can Airbnb it.
That's a strutting move. I wonder if any modern players are Airbnb-ing their house.
You don't want people in your house. Come on, man. Can you imagine the mess you could get left with coming back from a road trip?
I know. Especially like one where you're going to land at 3 a.m. You get home at like 4.
Yeah, and a guy's on your living room floor, passed out.
Guy's like, still in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a party going. You're like, you got to get out of my house, man. I can't have this right now. All right, Luke Wilson coming up on Hazen, bro. We called it. You guys, you demanded it. You said we have to have a win. And what did we do? We stepped up like Pete Alonso and the Mets. That's who we are. That's how we operate. Immaculate week. I can feel it. Hazen, bro, are chugging, looking ahead to week 5. Luke coming up. Al's brother coming up. Dear Hazy Beat coming up. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.